And we are live. Hello, everybody. Hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
We have been missing you guys. We're going to give everyone a
Oh,
moment to get into the throne room and join us for barbershop conversations. So, Ned, did it come up on your screen over there?
not yet, but hey, it will. It
Okay.
always does, right?
It always does. Absolutely. I just want to make sure that we're not having any issues.
All right.
And I believe that it is coming up on my end too. For some odd reason, I just don't see it yet.
Okay. Yep, I got it.
Okay, you got it. Good. Well, as we get started, for those of you who are just joining us, my name is Monica Jackson, and I am the founder of Royalty Mission Network. I am really, really excited to be here back in the throne room, the place that we've created for people to come and purge from their issues, heal from the wounds, and find rest, so that you can transform into that which you have been called and created to become, and that is royalty. Barbershop Conversations is here. We're back in having these really wild conversations about our men, really trying to understand what it is that men go through, and really connecting with the male mind and ego, spirit and soul, and really trying to identify with them so that they might reach their greater. And so who best to be able to help us do that and be in conversation about that and my brother and my friend Ned White of Pure Care Ministries. Ned, say hello to our people.
Hello, hello, hello. And like you, I've been missing this. It feels like we're what, a month away since we've had a chance to connect, and yeah, there was a void. So I'm excited to get back into the mix and share, talk, expose, turn the lights on, pull the covers back, and embrace all that comes with it.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, so we have this saying so that we get ready to go all in, we take the covers off,
Pull them
right?
back.
So we take them back, and those things mean to us that we remain curious, we remain open-minded, we always are vulnerable and transparent in the moment,
Absolutely.
and we show empathy towards one another's stories. We want to hear from you, so we want you to know that we are people, but we're not judgmental, and nor do we know it all. So we are
Right.
showing the empathy and the respect that's due to you and to the process of healing as we take this journey towards our healing. And so today, I am excited that we're going to be having this conversation, and all transparency, if we're going to take the cover off for real. This was something that was on my mind, but I wasn't sure if I should do it or not. So when I spoke to my brother, I said, "Brother, this morning, I don't know, how are you feeling about this?" And he's like, I'll go with that. Let's do. So we're going to have this conversation today about self-sabotaging. So men and relationships, and that thing that they do where it's like, why are you so stupid, from a woman's end? Like, did you really just do that? Like, you said you love me, but then you turn around and you did this. Like, how could that be, right? So, but we're really going to take a step back and kind of deep dive into what this really looks like, why people may be doing that, and what's behind it. Is there anything behind it? Does it have a bigger meaning? Is there more that we need to understand about it? And hopefully today, you guys feel and get some really powerful information from this that will help you move on towards either your own healing or towards your own understanding of yourself, right? And so invite your friends, invite your family. We want to
Please.
see you. feel free to drop a question. We want to hear the people's questions. We want to know what's in your mind. If you have a thought about this topic, please let us know. We look forward to having you guys. You
Absolutely.
ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready. Like I said, this is a topic that, most folks try to avoid, because in order to have this conversation, we got to talk about the areas that, you know, shows our true vulnerability and our true dysfunction. So
Yes, yes.
let's
All right,
focus.
so let's just get started. So we probably have some people who may not really understand what sabotaging and self-sabotaging means. So let's get into some understanding about what that really means and what that looks like.
Absolutely. Excuse me 1 second, sis. I'm sorry. And
No
my
problem.
apologies, because normally I am home when we are on, and my day has been kind of hectic, and so I'm still in my office.
Understood. Don't
Completely
worry
forgot
about
to turn phones off. So I was like, oh shoot, let me silence everything around me. But yeah, so yeah, this thing called sabotage, right? It's
it. Mhm.
Webster's definition of the word is to be undermining in an act, to do away with something or someone, or any entity. So that's for the undercurrent or the undermining of something, or having an underhanded approach to doing something or dealing with a situation, is really what sabotage is all about.
Right.
To self-sabotage, is almost kind of like an oxymoron kind of a moment, because it's like, really, you would do something to undermine, underhandedly, diminish your capability or your ability to have something. I don't understand why we would do that to ourselves, but that's what we do sometimes. And I think for brothers in particular, we tend to do that in our relationships
Mhm.
when things get hot and heavy. You know what I mean? When we are in a position where, it almost seems like, man, uh, we aren't in control of it, or we don't have the upper hand. Now it's like, wait, something's wrong here. Or, I was so funny. I was having a conversation with another friend of mine earlier today,
Mhm.
around this conversation, young pastor friend of mine. And he was like, yeah, he's 12 years, 13 years into his marriage. And he was
Mhm.
talking about how he's like, in the beginning, when he was young and he was dealing with, he said a lot of his boys literally almost ruined his relationship, because the deeper he got closer to his wife, the more his partners was like, oh, you nose wide open, and you just you handpicked it. And so as men in our inability to handle those kind of moments, we start finding things or looking for things to get out of where we are, and we will self sabotage our situations.
Yeah, that's good right there, right? So not only do we sabotage ourselves, but we have a tendency to also allow other people to sabotage things for us because of our inability to speak up, our pride and our wanting to fit in and not wanting to be rejected.
Yeah.
We tend to see that causes us to miss out on the thing that we actually say we love
Mhm.
as well. So, with that being said, then talk to us about what this really looks like from a couple of different angles within a relationship.
Hmm. Wow. So that was such a vague moment, dude. You normally don't do that to me. I was like, wait a minute, she left that kind of wide open. Uh,
We're
with,
doing
with,
good.
with your undermining, underhanded self over there.
All right. It's for your good. It's for the people's good.
For
Okay.
my good. Okay. So yeah. So I think that there are a lot of angles, as you use the analogy you use, towards how sabotage happens when we allow folks. Particularly, I'll start it from that perspective, from how we allow folks to get into our connection or our relationships.
Mhm.
Um, and one of them, and it became apparent for me even in my own stuff as I'm looking at my past relationships, and and even relationships that I currently are in, um, allowing individuals to have stake in our relationships or in our circle sometimes gets in the way because we're influenced by because it's just the nature of how we are. I think
Right.
all individuals, most people will, if they're honest with themselves, are always looking for acceptance in some circle in some place. And so when we have a circle of friends, male or female, we're always looking for that acceptance from them that what we do, who we're with, is acceptable. And if for whatever reason they don't show favor or give you the thumbs up that like, hey, you're in a good place, you start thinking like, man, this isn't, maybe I should, or how do I get out of this?
Right.
So that peer pressure from the outside of having friends or influencing your relationships is always a struggle and a form of self-sabotage because you allow them in. And if you don't allow them in, then you're preventing that from happening. Um, the other piece of it that I guess that I'll speak to is individually how we sabotage what we do and how we impact our connections to folks. Um, one of the things that really stands out, and I'll speak again. I always try to speak from the perspective of Ned, from my own personal stuff. When we find ourselves dealing with our own emotional stuff and our own emotional baggage and our own stuff, and we're trying to address it, we sometimes tend to either push away from folks and not allow them to be in a relationship with us because we're so-called trying to get ourselves together. um,
Right.
and then most times we're also just we're putting our own stuff on other people. Meaning that what I mean by that is that, we'll impose our own thoughts, our own belief systems, our own quirks, and apply them to the person who's attempting to connect or be connected to us. And then that creates additional anxiety and pressures that shouldn't be there. And it's one of those underlying or undercurrent sabotage moments where we're in some cases we're deliberately doing it even though we know it's wrong.
Right. So let's bring that to earth, right? Like let's make this plain as day. And right, because we have a very vast array of listeners, and what we love to do is always connect this back to reality. So we can talk all high level, but the real reality of it is that we see this manifested in so many different ways, whereby we'll be in a relationship with a man. He'll do something he knows he's not supposed to do. And let's just say, I'm gonna just throw it out there. So let's just say we in a relationship together. All of a sudden he sees Mary Jane over there, and Mary Jane looking real good, right?
At the
He
moment.
knows that he values what he has at home. And I'll add this caveat: Mary Jane can look and be whoever you think Mary Jane is, whether Mary Jane is the person or Mary Jane is another thing. Okay, so so he knows what he values at home, but it's almost as if that instant gratification mindset kicks in, whereby he's willing to risk everything on this side to
Hmm.
be able to partake in that, make himself feel good for the moment, not realizing that when it's all said and done and he gets caught out there, that he has to live with the consequences of that, right? So my question to you is, why do men do stuff
So,
like that?
so
And I'll just
right,
throw that in there.
I hear you. So I'll go to the first part. So you said something that was very powerful, and it dealt with value, right? I think that one of the biggest problems when you have situations similar to the one that you're referring to, and all of us have dealt with it, male or female, um, the lack of value to that relationship is what causes a person to look outside of that relationship. If you don't value the person you're with, if you don't value the connection, the uh, the give and take that that relationship can bring to your life, you're destined to find yourselves in that situation where you're looking at something else. You're looking for, see if the grass is greener on the other side. You know, is Mary Jane really what I want, or is what I have at home really what I want? If you value what you have at home, what's outside of your home doesn't hold any weight. It doesn't hold any merit, and that's difficult for a lot of people, and men in particular, because you know, unfortunately, most of us are just wired to go after and conquer and pursue and hunt.
Mhm.
And so when you're in that mindset where you're like, hey, my goal is to go get, you find yourself coming back home sometimes with more than you need or that you can handle. and and that becomes the other headache, because now, you know, here's a guy who's saying, hey, you know, I have this queen at home, but man, I couldn't help but go after Mary Jane. And now I got Mary Jane and I got this queen at home, and I don't know how to spread myself between the two. When the reality is you shouldn't be spreading yourself between the two. You should be committing yourself to the one that you have, or the one that you decide to have.
Yeah,
That
that's
lack of
good.
value is it. I think it's just I think in a nutshell, it's really about folks not valuing the relationship and the power of that relationship.
So I'm gonna offer some pushback, because I know
Yeah.
that there's some guys out there be like, yo, bro, that's not really it. I really do love her. I really do value everything about her, and I really do value this relationship.
Uh-huh.
I just got caught up. What do
That's
you
your
say to
pushback.
that?
That's
Yeah.
that's the pushback.
So what do you say? Right. So, but this is the thing that I'm trying to say. Like, there are excuses made. That
That's
and
what you gave me.
right, and self-sabotaging people do not take in on the responsibility and the ownership that
Mhm.
is necessary in order to move to the better place.
Right.
So my thing to you then becomes, what is it within the mindset that really forces a person to not want to deal with their real issues and rather push it off?
Well, you said it. Not wanting to take the responsibility. Um, we've said this many times before. The healing process for any of us is about self. You have to take the time to understand you, and be willing to and take the responsibility of starting your healing, whatever it is, wherever that area it is, whatever the particular place or space you're in. So if you're not willing to be responsible for you, then there's no way that you're ever going to change or be out of have a different mindset. Um, the other piece, and I'll echo it again, is understanding the value of you so that you can understand the value of another person. I said to someone recently, I had I have a young lady friend, and we were in this whole conversation because Ned's dealing with Ned, and my healing process is, I always tell everybody, it's lifelong. I'm going to be healing for the rest of my life as long as God gives me breath. I'll always be trying to deal with some stuff that I had to deal with on my latter part of my life, because that's just how it works.
Right.
Um, but I remember saying to this young lady, that A, I wasn't ready because I wasn't in a good place, but also letting her know that I wasn't holding her captive to, hey, you are connected to me, even though I'm not ready, I'm gonna hold you here. Like, I wouldn't do anything. I didn't want to connect to her in any way. There was no physical involvement. We weren't trying to, I wouldn't even kiss her.
Right.
Like, there was no connection in that way, because of the fact that I knew that there's a responsibility that comes once those elements are introduced into a connection. And
Yeah.
so if I wasn't ready, I shouldn't do it. And I say that to a lot of my brothers. If you're not in a place where you know this is what you want to do, like, hey, this is the woman that I want to try to build something with. Because and again, maybe there might be some brothers out there who are looking at me like, yo, dude, I ain't where you are, because I'm a young buck, or I'm a younger, and they might be looking at me like, I ain't where you at. You older and seasoned, and you got all that gray hair. Yeah, all
Right.
that's true. But I'm telling you from experience that if you walk into relationships thinking that, hey, this is just a hit it and quit it moment, you're going to always have that mindset and mentality. And all you're going to do is hurt you and others, until we get to a place where you start saying, how do I find the sister that's best for me? Because I'm best for her. you
Right.
know, and build on that. you'll always be in that crazy place where you're just, making stupid decisions, um, coming up with a multitude of excuses of why I did what I did. And, what I
Right.
mean, it was, because that's all I've known, or this, that. I mean, listen, the list of excuses or pushback is endless. That list is longer than my arm, and I'm 6'4".
Right.
So, to do that doesn't help the process. It really just hinders the healing. Um,
Right.
and it is, again, to the point of the conversation tonight, it is just another component to sabotage, to self-sabotage, because how better to continue to stay in the place that I am than to make a whole lot of excuses for why I'm here. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not owning it. I'm just going to tell you, hey, that happened because you didn't do this.
Right.
Which is one of my favorites. I love it when I hear brothers say, like, I cheated because my woman didn't do X, Y, Z.
So you mean it wasn't because of that? Is that what you're saying,
I'm
Ned?
saying that it wasn't because of that. I'm going
We
on the
got
record
okay.
right
Okay.
now,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I'm saying this as a brother who has cheated
Right.
on the
Right.
record. Hey, it's BS. I'm call
Right.
it what it is. What I mean? We'll make 101 excuses for why we do the nonsense that we do, and not own our mess. And
Right.
so, that's one of the other elements to sabotage. I'm gonna create a whole lot of reasons why, I did that. Like, I
Yeah.
just, I tripped and fell and ended up in her bed. I don't know. You didn't have your shoes
Jesus.
on the floor. I would have
Jesus. Right. So here's one of the things that I want to just let everyone know who has come in and are just joining us. I want to say to you, please, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, please
absolutely.
feel free to share.
My
Please
head.
feel free to ask. Please feel free to put a comment in the box. We can see them and we want to hear from you. Ask your questions. This is an open dialogue between all of us. I'm sure that there are people who have some comments and their own thoughts and theories about this. And so we would love to hear from you, participate.
Absolutely.
Again, we are talking about why do men self-sabotage? And so as we continue this conversation, Brother Ned, I want to just add just a little piece in here with regards to this the forces that kind of lead to the self-sabotaging, which are a little bit more subtle than what we would think they are. Because oftentimes we don't even understand or even know that we are self-sabotaging. And I'm not putting that in a general box just for men. This is something that women deal with as well, right? Everyone deals with it. But what are those things and problems that you have in your daily life, your activities that might interfere with your long-standing goals or the things that you say you love the most? Oftentimes we see ourselves connecting to things and not really understanding why, or doing things and not understanding why. For instance, um, procrastination is a big one, and most people won't understand that self-sabotaging. They just think it's a habit, bad habit that I have. But in effect, procrastination keeps you away from being able to obtain and do the things that you need to do for the sake of loving you and getting where you need to
Correct.
be. On the other end of that spectrum, I'll also say that self-medication, right? That thing about my drug and alcohol usage, that and comfort eating, the things that cause you to do self-injury and self-harm, these are all ways that can be seen as self-sabotaging at times, but oftentimes we don't see it that way. And so I wanted to just throw that out there because a lot of people say, oh, well, I don't suffer from that. That was what I'm doing is not self-sabotaging. I'm just coming into temptations and I'm giving in here and there. But ultimately, the thing that undermines exactly what you said, Brother Ned, the thing that undermines and takes away from and strips you from the very things that you say you want or where you're thinking you want to be, when you are utilizing other behaviors that distract you from doing that, that is a form of self-sabotaging.
Correct. Correct.
I want to go back to something that you said before about, even as a cheater, when you're talking about in the relationship, when you're talking about your ability to take ownership. Um, Oftentimes, when you're caught out there, I see that there's a lack of the ability to communicate in the moments whereby you are caught out there, right? So,
Mhm.
Why is that? Why do we see that men oftentimes hesitate or cannot articulate what's really going on to us?
So I'm going to answer that question. I wanted to say something to the comments you made a moment ago, though, in regards to some of the vices that kind of get in the way of our relationships or our ability to connect. And I'm reminded of something that was said to me years ago, and what I think most folks have heard it. But you make time for what you value. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And if the relationship is really important to you, you'll create time and space for it. And
right.
I encourage folks to do that. I myself, I'm guilty of, and still guilty of working more than I should. Right.
Mhm.
And so it's important to me to make time away from work in order to nurture those things that I say I want and that are good for me. Um, so I just wanted to add that in. To your question about communicating or the inability for men to communicate. I think that there are so many reasons probably why brothers don't. I, I, I'll give you Ned. I'll give you from my perspective. I can't. I don't even know if this is across the board or what, because every brother is a little bit different and why they don't. Um, but for Ned, it was about pride, right? It was
Mm,
my ego in the way of, hey, you know, how dumb of me to get caught, number one. And then now I got to deal with the issues of, not just the shame of, oh, you got caught doing something or got caught out there. It became more of a personal thing, like, how stupid am I? Like that I slipped up like that. And then in that, now I'm like self-absorbed in my malice behavior. How dare I mess up, that I can't even communicate that to you, because you'll never understand that I'm pissed at the fact that I messed up, not upset at the fact that I hurt you. Because that
right.
that would really just like, okay, this is a done deal. So for me, it's easier to just be like, maybe I'm sorry, and try to find some way to pacify, or you know snow it over, or whatever I got to do, or whatever most brothers try to do to kind of take the emphasis off of the act and try to create another vein of conversation or dialogue that'll get you somewhere else, and we don't have to discuss it. Um, and I'm pretty sure for most brothers, there's probably a litany of reasons that they use, that kind of are deflectors away from that dialogue.
Mm,
Because in order to do that, we have to be in tune to who we are, and understand the empathetic need of the woman to hear that we dropped the ball, we messed up, and why we messed up. Um,
mm,
because for brothers, it's not important for me to know why. You just did it. Is it fixable or is it not fixable? For women, it's important for you to know why it happened, because in your head you're thinking, if you did it once, you can do it again. So I need to know what triggered that. Why did that happen? And what made that happen?
is it
And
me?
right. You're looking at all of those components. And for a brother, we're like, listen, yeah, I screwed up. Can we fix it or not? Is
Right.
that the end of this relationship, or you gonna give me a chance to kind of get right with you?
It's not that easy though,
And
Nick, because you can say, no, I don't want to deal with you no more. And they're like, no, baby, please, like, no, like we're going to work this out. I'm not going anywhere. And so when you have that issue, it brings it to a whole nother level.
shame on y'all for letting that happen.
Really? You know
Oh,
what? So that actually brings me into my next question.
well, yeah. Let me
What
just say
do
why I say
women,
that.
you set it up. So
Go
what do
ahead.
women really need to know about the heart of the man in the instance whereby he's messed up?
Right. So let's be honest, and I'll do this generically. Most brothers I know have a zero tolerance policy if their woman cheats.
Right.
It's a no. It's a no. Listen, we're done. And they're not turning around. They're not looking back. They're not giving you a second chance. You can't come
Right.
back and be like, baby, please, I miss you. He looking at you like, no.
You for the street.
Right.
You for the street.
She for the streets all day, every day. But for sisters, you have I don't know if it's the nurturing component in you, or you guys are better at forgiving than us. Y'all make a brother pay, but y'all y'all are quick to let a brother say, all right, let's get us another shot. As long as you know that here's what you cannot ever do again. And
Yeah.
now he under lock and key, and then he's, it is what it is. But yeah, men don't forgive that infidelity thing. For us is hard. Um, we don't bend on it. We don't kind of, I don't know. It's difficult, and I think it's. I want to say it is what it is. It is genetic in a sense, because of the fact that I think that for men, the ideal of intimacy or sex, right, is really just about penetration and move on, right? Because for most brothers, it is okay. I don't even say it's okay. It is almost natural for them to have sex without connection.
Mm.
For women, it's a little bit different because you guys have to be. I mean, so we're gonna have our pull the cover moment off, right? So for brothers, we're penetrating, right?
Right.
So the act of penetration for us is just an act because we're just insert and pull out. For women,
Right.
you have to receive us, meaning that
Right.
you have to open up to who we are. You have to get to. So the connection for y'all is a lot more intimate. And so when you cheat on a brother, he knows that. Listen, she ain't just so if
Didn't
she, right. So if she actually gave my man a piece, she had to like, yeah, he was in the head, he in there. She ain't just like. So it's a little bit different for us because we know, like, yo, I was with Becky and she just, hey, we was at the club. I had a couple of drinks. She said she would do it, and I was like, let's go. For a sister, we know y'all was like, let me think this thing through. Y'all think about consequence. See, it's checkers and chess. For us, it's just a move. For y'all, it's a strategic plan. Y'all play. Yeah, nah, y'all.
I plead the fifth in this
I
whole
bet you would.
conversation right now.
Just
Now,
saying.
well, to be honest with you, I'm gonna say there's another spectrum because there are some women, there are some points in times whereby it is a let's get this a wham bam thank you ma'am, let me give me my money,
Absolutely.
let's go, type of situation.
Mhm.
And that in itself is self-sabotaging for
Correct.
everybody
For
involved.
everybody.
And so we
Mhm.
want to be clear that there is a distinction, but in any instance, all of these things lead back to self-sabotaging. It leads back to brokenness and harm and dysfunction and
Mhm.
all the things that tear us apart. Again, I'm going to lead it back to the same question. What do women need to know about the heart of a man in those moments whereby he's broken trust and he's done something that harmed himself?
What does a woman need to know? Really?
He was coming.
And then there was silence. Uh,
Right. That's when the wheels turn and
well,
covers
of
off.
course, because I want to be very honest and transparent and sincere in that response, because I think it's important. Um, wow. So is this may sound like I'm kind of deflecting or trying to elude the question, but it is almost a case by case moment, right? And the reason I say that is because folks cheat for different reasons, right? And in all honesty, all jokes aside, you never know why a person did it. And there are some cases where that individual they just a dog, or they just do what they do. And if that's the case, I'll honestly say in most cases that woman knows that dude. She know who she hooked up with. She know he a dog. He was a dog when she met him, and so to expect him to be something other than what you met him being is almost like, listen, you would have had to walk through many a dark night and many a tearful
Right.
day.
Right.
Let's be real before you see the change. But in a lot of circumstances, those moments of infidelity and cheating and distrust come out of some really ugly places. And so, for sisters to give you like a bullet point might be difficult, but to say to you, I think that one of the things that is clear when you're dealing with someone is taking the time to get to know your man. And I don't mean just the outer shell of him, being willing to sit down when there's not an argument, when there's no frustration or when there's no distraction, and really talk about what his likes are, his dislikes are, the things that make him tick, his upbringing. All of those components, those conversations are important because if there's ever a a blip on the page where you're like, now you have something to base it off of, right? I just had a conversation recently with one of my siblings, my sister, and we talked about the fact that, the character of a person really matters. And if you know me, and you should know me, there's certain things that you should not have to say or do or be worried about when it comes to me. Like, you should be like, okay, that's my brother. I know him. But that's my man. I know what my man likes. I'm comfortable with knowing because we've talked and we've had transparent dialogue and we've been honest and open with each other from day one. And so if something goes awry, you almost can see the signs beforehand. If you know your man normally come home every day and, he walk in the door and he kiss you and y'all embrace. And then he's like, hey, what's for dinner? And then one day he coming home and he don't kiss you and he goes straight to the shower.
We know.
That's a moment to have a listen, hey, what's going on? And sometimes I think for women in particular, they see those signs and then they're like, oh no, let me do my homework or let me do my investigation. And then you start digging up these other components when it's really just as simple as sitting down. Because I think if you have a relationship that's open and honest, you should be able to sitting down and say, hey.
The honest part is
absolutely.
That's a big deal because a lot of men are not honest. Okay. So they don't even know who they are. And so that's a big part of the issue is if you're dealing with someone who doesn't know who they are, then how can you expect them to tell you who they are, right? And so everybody's walking in darkness.
Right.
And
the underlying piece to that, though, I'm sorry to cut you off, but the underlying piece to that is the fact that you can expect someone to share with you honestly who they are because they don't know who they are. But you can choose not to be in the relationship with someone who can't tell you who they are. Right. So if you're connecting to someone and there's a lot of illusions going on and they're there because sometimes we try to pretend and when old boy disappear every day and you like, where you go? He'd be like, oh, I was at work. You're like, where you work at? And he like, oh, I just work and
right.
Like, dude, you disappear every day at 11 p.m. and I don't see you again until, 6 a.m.
Right.
But I ain't never seen you go to the bank and cash a check.
Right.
I'll never hear you talk about work. You just like, those are questions that, require more questions.
Right.
Like, who are you?
With you with the question asking piece, but there are some men, y'all mouths like slickness and being able to come up with the story that really just like it's elaborate and everything.
It's believable
to the T, and they will argue you down for the belief, right?
And convince you. Change your mind.
How do you really? How you maneuver around that? I don't see a way that women really have an opportunity to upfront right away maneuver around that. Now, on the back end, after some time, you can see it, you can smell it, you call it what it is. But
you'll probably never see it.
Right.
You really don't. But in all honesty, and I guess I'll throw this to the table, there's this thing called discernment. And you have a sixth sense and you have a gut, whichever applies fits. And so if, you're dealing with someone over a period of time and they quack like a duck, they walk like a duck, they're a duck. Stop thinking that brother going to turn out to be a turkey when he not. Like, and I think that's one of the bigger things that happens. I think a lot of times we are, and I think this was generic. I think this is male or female. We have a habit of seeing someone the way we want to see them. even when they're not showing us that. And they might give us glimmers of it, or they might have potential to be that. But we're like, no, he's just, it's just something about him. He's good to me. And we start making these justifiable reasons for why we'll accept the other behavior that we don't like. And so at some point, when we all as an individual get to a place where we're okay being by ourselves, and it's okay to say to someone, listen, I don't have to have this. Love you too. Wish you the best, but I don't need this. I may want it, but I don't need it. And I think that's a big piece for us in relationships, because a lot of us end up in these relationships, and women in particular end up in this place where they just feel like, I need this man, or he, which is a term I don't like, he completes me. Yeah.
Wow. Not at all. I agree with you 1000%. One of the things that I want to shed light and make sure that our listeners understand is this in itself, this conversation, even this particular piece of it, is a form of self-sabotaging as well, right? So women, when we choose to stay in something that we know is not going to harness us and propel us to the place in which we've been created to go, that too is self-sabotaging. And we really need to take responsibility. So as much as I want to say that this conversation is about our men, this conversation, when we're talking about relationships, it's about our women as well. Yes. And so the longer we hold on to things, knowing that it is not for us, we are self-sabotaging. We're undermining what we've been created and called to receive for our lives. We cannot be in a place of openness. If we're constantly carrying stuff, our hands are closed because we're trying to carry it. We can never be in a position where our hands are open to be able to receive the thing which was created for us and is good to us and will exemplify the things that we desire. So I just wanted to make sure that we understood together as a community that this sabotaging moments happen not just on one end, they happen on all ends. And that when it comes specifically to relationships, it is not just about the man cheating or the man going out and doing whatever. It is also in our complacency and our compliance that we too self-sabotage.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. I like the topic. I can have a whole lot more things that I can say about it, right? There are a lot of ways in which we can take the covers off on this thing, even all the way down when we talk about perfectionism and work and finances and our ability to manage our time, as well as our unwanting and unwillingness to address change, right? Seeing change as a negative and not wanting to evolve by dealing with ourselves and working on ourselves are also moments of self-sabotaging. I just want to know from you, Brother Ned, in a whole, if you were to walk with us through just some ways in which we can really help ourselves heal from those self-sabotaging moments, what would that look like?
Oh my gosh, really?
Because we're dealing with broken people. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to.
And it is absolutely the analogy that makes sense when you're dealing with broken people. I guess the first thing out the gate is to be patient with your relationships, right? When you are interested in or thinking about or contemplating a relationship of any type, but particularly with a mate, be patient, be understanding of the time and space that's required. Don't rush it. Don't jump in. I mean, I know there's these folks who believe in love at first sight and jumping in both feet and, hey, it is what it is. That I would be patient in that relationship. Just don't jump in. Get to know the person, get to understand who they are, meet their people. Because sometimes even if a person not going to be real, family will.
Yeah.
You look around, they be like, "How do you end up with him?" There's there's a red flag that you really need to pay attention to, because there's a reason why they said. So yeah, be patient, take your time, and get to know folks. Secondly, don't rush to the altar. You know what I mean? If you are destined to be together for the rest of your lives, trust me, that person is going to wait around as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do the right way. So don't feel like, oh my God, my biological clock is ticking, and don't allow for. And I'm saying this one straight to my brothers: do not allow that woman to force you into a place that you're not comfortable, and vice versa. In all honesty, allow the relationship to be organic, to let it grow in its own way, the way that you see it growing, but also allowing that space for flexibility and for understanding. And I guess the last one is really just taking time to understand who you are, right? And that should have been the first one, to be honest with you, because in order for me to connect to you, I got to be able to, share who I am. I in my days of coaching sports, I would always talk to young folks about their own brand, being your brand, and that when you look at certain items, you don't even have to think about what they do. You automatically know what they do when you see their logo, And if you spot a logo for like a dunk for a McDonald's, the Golden Arches, you don't have to guess that they got Big Macs. You know they got Big Macs. You know what they sell. Build your brand. Build who you are. So when folks see you, they know who you are and what you're about. And 9 times out of 10, if your stuff is right, the jokers who ain't about nothing aren't going to come your way. You know what I mean? The people who are looking at you like, yeah, let me save my breath because I ain't even where they are. I can't even bring that to the table for that person. Yeah. So build the brand for yourself that lets folks know that, someone said, I'll use this one and I'm going to leave it right here at the end of it all. Someone said to me recently that, biblically, we always hear the text, a man who finds a wife finds a good thing. And it's a profound, very, very sometimes overused scripture. What I like about that now is that it made sense when someone explained it to me that the text talks about a man finding a wife, right? 2 pieces to that I need you to understand. One is you have to be a man. You can't be a boy doing childish things. You have to be a man, a responsible man who's taking ownership of himself in order to even start looking for the wife. Second part of it is, in order to find a wife, that woman must present herself as a wife. You can't grab a girlfriend and think you're going to make her a wife. She's got to be wifey material, as they say. She's got to be presenting herself as a wife in order for you to find her. Or you're just finding a girlfriend. Or you finding a woman on the side. Or a mistress or whatever. If she is a wife, she'll present herself as such. And that's when you find it. That's when the connection happens. When you're the man who God's called you to be, you will find the woman who has prepared herself to be your wife. I'm going to leave it with that. How's that?
That's good. That's good. That's really good. So in that self-reflection piece of who you are and finding yourself, it requires some work, right? It requires you to look at yourself in ways that you might not be happy with. It requires you to look at some things that really hurt you and cause you some trauma and some turmoils. But once you really face those things for what they are, you'll find you and you'll find the better part of you so that you will begin the new life and the journey that you were supposed to live. And so we are encouraging each and every one of you to join us in this healing journey. To begin to ask the questions of show me, God, universe, whatever you call it, Buddha, Allah, however it looks.
Whatever it is.
Whatever it is for you, my mom said, show me me. That's the thing that my mom always says. And so
Mm.
I am really upholding that and challenging all of our listeners and those who come into contact with our content to begin the journey of challenging yourself and asking that thing that's important to you to show and reveal yourself to yourself so that you
Correct.
can move forward in the direction that was made for you. Again, we thank you guys for joining us. We are so happy and ecstatic that you guys joined us this afternoon. I believe that we did have a comment. Sharon, thank you for saying that, for joining us and being with us. We really
Amen.
appreciate
Right.
you. We really appreciate your love and sharing and giving out the information. If anyone wants to connect with us, please feel free to connect with us on royaltynetwork.net. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of that good stuff.
All social media.
There, TikTok, I don't know. However it all goes, we're there. Just feel free to connect with us. We do want to hear from you.
Yes.
So join us in 2 weeks again for our next session of Barbershop Conversations with myself and Brother Ned. Until then, don't forget to take the cover off. Find out who you are. Talk to you guys later.
Take care, everybody.